I've never been a fan of clowns, but I never thought they'd be the reason for one of the most terrifying nights of my life. It all started about 6 months ago. I had just moved to a small town on the outskirts of nowhere, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and things are always quiet. But, as you might expect, it didn't take long for me to feel out of place. I didn't know anyone, and the isolation started to get to me after a while. One Saturday night, I was sitting at home, trying to watch a movie on my laptop, when I heard a faint sound. It was distant, like music or a carnival tune. I thought it was odd, but maybe it was some kind of local celebration. There was a small park just down the street from my apartment, so I figured it might be coming from there. Curious, I decided to check it out. I threw on a hoodie and stepped outside. The air was thick with humidity, the kind that presses against your skin and makes you feel like you're walking through a damp blanket. I walked down the empty street, the sound growing louder the closer I got to the park. When I arrived, the scene in front of me was strange. The park was illuminated by a few flickering lights from a nearby street lamp. In the middle of the grass, there was a small makeshift carnival set up. Some booths, a few tents, and a rickety old carousel. But the weirdest part was the group of clowns standing around it. There were at least 5 of them, all dressed in brightly colored costumes, their faces painted with exaggerated, grotesque smiles. They were just standing there, not moving, not talking. It was as if they were frozen in time. I felt a knot in my stomach. Why were they here? At this hour? I should have turned around and left right then and there, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe it was because I thought I was just imagining things. I walked closer, and as I did, I noticed something even stranger. They were all wearing identical black boots, scuffed and worn. Their eyes, though, were unsettling, dark and hollow. They didn't blink. They didn't even look at me, but I could feel their gaze, like it was digging into my skin. Suddenly, one of the clowns jerked his head toward me, and for a brief moment, our eyes met. The smile on his face stretched unnaturally wide. It was a grin that went beyond the paint, beyond the mask. It was a grin that felt real and terrifying. Without thinking, I backed up, ready to turn and run. But as I moved, the music that had been playing, that eerie carnival tune, suddenly stopped. And in the silence, I heard it. The sound of footsteps. The sound of multiple sets of feet, shuffling and dragging on the ground. They were coming toward me. I didn't wait to see how many there were. I turned and sprinted down the street, my heart pounding in my chest, the thumping of my feet drowning out the soft, eerie shuffle behind me. When I reached my apartment, I slammed the door shut and locked it. I pressed my back against the cold wood, my breath coming in gasps. I could still hear the shuffle, though. It was faint at first, but slowly, it grew louder. They were out there. I dared not look out the window. I stayed in place, straining to hear any sounds, any movement. And then I heard it. A faint tapping on the window. Slow, deliberate. I turned my head slowly, terrified of what I might see. My heart nearly stopped when I saw what was outside. One of the clowns stood there, his face pressed against the glass. His eyes, those black, hollow eyes, were staring directly into mine. He didn't move. He didn't blink. Just stood there smiling that awful grin. And then, as I watched in horror, he slowly raised his hand to the window, tapping it once more, before backing away into the darkness. I couldn't sleep that night. The fear of them being out there just waiting kept me up. Every sound, every creak in the building had me on edge. The next morning, I hesitated before leaving my apartment, but when I stepped outside, everything seemed normal. The park was empty, no carnival, no clowns, just an empty, silent street. I haven't seen them again, but every so often, I hear that distant carnival tune in the night, and every time I do, I can't help but wonder if they're still out there, watching, waiting for the next person who dares to come too close. I never believed in the whole killer clown thing. I thought it was just another creepy urban legend, like those stories people tell to get a reaction. But after what happened to me, I can't deny what I saw. It was last summer, a few days before Halloween. I had just gotten off work and was driving home when I noticed something strange. There was a car parked on the side of the road, down by the old abandoned circus grounds. The place had been deserted for years, mostly just a creepy eyesore people tried to forget about. But something was different tonight. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. As I drove past, I noticed the headlights of the car were off. No one was in the driver's seat. I glanced around, wondering if someone had just stopped to take a break, maybe to smoke a cigarette or something. Then I saw it, a shadow moving in the dark just by the entrance to the circus. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. But my curiosity got the better of me, and I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. That's when I saw it. A figure stood in the doorway of the circus, just a silhouette at first. But as the headlights of my car illuminated the area briefly, I saw it clearly. A clown. But not just any clown. Its face was pale, almost white as paper, with smeared makeup and blood-red lips twisted into a permanent, unnerving grin. Its hair was wild, like it had been torn apart by hands desperate to rip it out. It wore a dirty, torn suit, its sleeves hanging too long, as if it were a costume on a much larger person. My heart started racing. Something about it didn't sit right with me. I kept driving, trying to shake the image of the clown out of my head, but the thought of it lingered, gnawing at the back of my mind. When I got home, I parked in the driveway and was about to get out of the car when I saw something in the corner of my eye. A movement. I turned my head slowly, my pulse quickening as my gaze landed on the old circus grounds across the street. And there it was again. The clown, standing right at the edge of the road, just beyond the fence, staring directly at me. I froze. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly I thought they might crack. I could see its eyes now, pale and empty, like black holes staring right through me. And then it moved. Slowly, deliberately, it began to walk toward me. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, like it was pretending to be a human, but couldn't quite pull it off. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could do was stare. It got closer, closer. Then, in one swift motion, it reached the car. The clown leaned down to the window, its face only inches from mine. The grin stretched wider, the smile impossibly large, as if its lips were tearing apart at the seams. The air smelled sour, like rotten meat mixed with the heavy scent of chemicals. It tapped on the window with a long, bony finger. I don't know how long I stayed there, my eyes locked on that grotesque face, but I was paralyzed with fear. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't even blink. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the street, someone slamming a door nearby, and the clown snapped its head toward the sound. It paused, as if confused, then quickly backed away, retreating into the darkness. I don't know why, but I didn't wait to see what would happen next. I slammed the car into reverse and sped off down the street, my heart still pounding in my chest. The next morning, I tried to convince myself it was just some sick prank. Maybe it was just someone in a creepy costume, or some weird mental breakdown. But when I went online, I found out that there had been reports of people seeing similar clowns in the area. A few locals even said they'd seen one wandering through the woods, acting bizarrely, as if it had been following them for days. But it wasn't the stories or reports that still haunt me. It's the fact that when I checked the old circus grounds the next day, there was no sign of anyone. No car, no clown, no footprints in the dirt. Just empty, abandoned land. And then, a week later, I found something in my mailbox. A picture of me, taken from a distance, standing by my car the night I saw the clown. The caption beneath it read, "You're next." I haven't seen the clown again since, but I can't shake the feeling that it's still out there. Watching, waiting. And I can't help but wonder if it's still keeping an eye on me from the shadows. I never thought I'd be the one telling this kind of story. It was late last year when this all happened, just before Halloween. I'll never forget it. I was on a road trip, traveling through the woods to visit some friends. The route was remote, but not unusual. Just a long stretch of dark, empty highway with dense trees on either side. I remember my headlights cutting through the thick night air and the eerie silence except for the hum of the engine. I thought nothing of it at the time. Around midnight, I pulled into a small, run-down gas station to fill up. The place was deserted, no other cars in sight. As I was filling up, I noticed movement in the corner of my eye. Something strange by the diner beside the station. A figure hunched over, standing still under the flickering street lamp. It was odd. The figure seemed off. At first, I thought it was just a man, but then I saw the colors. The red and white stripes, the giant, unnaturally round shoes. A clown, but not the kind you'd see at a circus. No, this thing looked wrong. Its face was painted with grotesque, exaggerated features, its eyes black as coal, and a smile stretched far too wide across his face, almost like it had been drawn on by someone who didn't understand what a human smile should look like. The costume was tattered, worn down, like it had been through hell. I froze. I should have left right then, but instead, my curiosity kept me rooted to the spot. I told myself it was just someone in a costume, maybe out celebrating early. I mean, it was almost Halloween, right? So I finished pumping gas, but as I climbed into my car, I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I glanced at the clown one more time, and that's when I saw it. It wasn't just standing there. It was watching me. I quickly slammed the door shut, started the engine, and pulled out of the station. I could see the clown in my rearview mirror, standing in the same spot, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It wasn't moving, just staring. I tried to shake it off, but the feeling in my gut told me something was very wrong. A mile or so down the road, I noticed headlights behind me, unusually close. At first, I thought it was just another car, but the headlights didn't blink or shift. They stayed steady, too steady. I sped up, and so did the car behind me. I glanced in my rearview mirror. Car's headlights were too bright now, blinding. And then, I saw it. Through the lights, I saw another figure, a clown. A second one standing in the middle of the road, not moving, just standing there. I panicked. My heart was racing, and I swerved to the side of the road, narrowly avoiding hitting the clown. I floored the gas pedal, tearing down the dark highway. I didn't look back, but I could still see the glowing headlights in my mirror, growing closer. I turned a corner, speeding through the winding road, but when I looked again, there was another clown, This one wasn't standing. It was crouched, hiding behind a tree, waiting for me to pass. My pulse shot through my chest. My breath was ragged, and I felt the overwhelming urge to scream. I kept driving, faster, hoping I was just imagining things. But the truth was, I was being hunted. I found a sign for a small town up ahead. I took the exit, my tires screeching as I slid onto the next street. I wasn't sure where I was, but I didn't care. I parked in front of a random house, took a deep breath, and tried to calm myself down. But just as I was about to get out of the car to knock on someone's door, I saw it. A clown, standing in the yard of the house I had parked in front of, grinning, waiting. I don't know how many there were, but I know they were out there watching. I could feel their eyes on me, even through the window. I don't remember how I got out of there. Maybe I passed out from the sheer terror, or maybe I just snapped. But I eventually made it to safety, into a well-lit area where I could still hear the distant laughter. The sound was hollow, echoing in my skull. I don't know who they were or what they wanted. I don't know if they were just people dressed up for Halloween or something else. But one thing is certain, I will never, ever forget that night. The laughter still haunts me. The thought that wherever I go, they might still be out there, waiting, just out of sight. And every time I drive through those woods, I still feel like someone, something, is watching me.